I think my mission in life is to go directly against everything that the book community says. They tell you that rating a book poorly is bad and wrong because it hurts the author's feelings, and I am here today to debunk that. Come in here and sit down. Hello friends, welcome back to Shelby and the Book Club. I'm Shelby Monet, and in today's video, the first book review of the year, I'm going to talk about a book that I didn't really like. I think I rated it a 3.5, and that was solely because of the writing. The story itself, no point whatsoever. But the other thing that I want to touch on before we get into what the book is and why I didn't like it is that rating a book poorly it's not bad and wrong, baby. I mean, don't be out here telling the authors to haul their ass to hell or nothing. You know, like that's rude. I'm probably gonna say that. But it's okay if you didn't like a book and you decide to talk about that you didn't like the book, right? I don't think that we necessarily have to protect authors the way that we think we do. When people are just saying, hey, here are the reasons I did not like this book. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before we get started, there may be spoilers, right? If you do plan to read this book, then maybe this video is not for you. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me some books down below that you didn't like. Because just because you didn't like them doesn't mean that I'm gonna like them. And just because I'm about to rant and rave in this video, or rave ain't the right word, but even though I'm about to hoot and holler in this video doesn't mean that you won't actually love it, right? I think these types of videos create space for conversation that y'all don't actually want to have, which is why y'all don't want people to rate the books bad. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and without further ado, here we go. Ciao, boo. I read The Wildest Sun by Asha Lemme. And I'm not going to say that it was terrible and bad. I'm not going to say that because I don't think that it was terrible and bad. I think at bare minimum, it was an okay book. Did I like it? No. Was the writing good? Absolutely. She tells a very great story. My issue is, what was the reason? Insert Cardi B somewhere on the screen. What was the reason? And I don't necessarily know that I believe that all stories should have this big, profound, deeper level of meaning. I don't necessarily think that, but there should be something, especially when you are putting a character through all of this and you're giving us all of this information, and then it ends with almost like a happily ever after. Okay, again, for the second time, before we go, get into it for real, there may be spoilers. There may be spoilers. Hello, there may be spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers for this book because you plan to read it, and spoilers affect you, do not go any further. Go watch some of my other videos that may benefit you a little bit better. Okay, cool. So in this book, we meet the main character, Delphine Auber. And right off the bat, she insinuates that she killed her mother. And she is running away. Because she thinks that Ernest Hemingway is her father. And that right there is when I should have known that this book was going to be a bunch of nonsense, right? Like that should have been my level of understanding that, like, oh, the main character is delusional, so that we not really gonna get far. But because the author is black, I said I'm gonna support my girl. And I enjoyed her first book. I really did enjoy her first book. What I can say about 50 Words for Rain is that there is in her writing consistently are the issues of like mommy issues, and how that affects women, right? How that kind of presents a little bit differently in women. So back to Delphine. Delphine is from Paris, France. She speaks French. She speaks no English. Her mom is white and her assumed daddy is white. So that also threw me off too, because I've never read a book where a black author is writing about, like, their main character is white. Like, that was different for me, because I had it in my mind that we were going to get through this book and we were going to learn that Delphine was passing, right? Again, thinking back to her first book, the main character in that book was mixed race, and the author is mixed race. So I'm just assuming, like, we are following some sort of linear path here, because authors do that often, right? I think we don't give enough credit to how much you can see an author in their work, right? So Delphine moves to New York. She is living with a black couple that are friends of her mother that are from Louisiana, so they speak French, and they own this restaurant in Harlem. She's helping out at the restaurant. She's learning English. She wants to be a writer, right? Following in the footsteps of her presumed father. And they are trying to help her with that. A part of that is her taking an English course so that she can learn to speak English. This book takes place in the 40s and 50s. 40s, 50s, and 60s. Yeah. So leaving one of her night classes to learn English, right? Oh, another big thing that we need to understand about her is she was raised by her mother, but there also was a nun in her life who was her godmother, who she lived with and took care of her and all of this other stuff, because her mother was an alcoholic. Her mother was an aspiring writer as well, but apparently after Mr. Hemingway left the mama, she spiraled into alcoholism, leading to Delphine having to take care of her mother at a young age, right? So this is a big part of Delphine's life, because she meets people and she wants to save them. So she makes a friend, quote unquote Teddy, who very much gives like Marilyn Monroe vibes, and honestly looks down on Delphine a bit, because she assumes that she's better than Delphine, but she has a drug issue. Delphine sees her as somebody that she can save. Like, I didn't save my mother, but I can probably save, the girl's name was Teddy, I can probably save Teddy. That happens. The couple that she's staying with, like, they care about her, and like they buy her a typewriter, but when they see that Teddy is on drugs, they decide like, oh, you can't hang out with her and live here. Delphine might be a thief. I mean, she's already insinuated that she kills her mother, right? Okay, so something happens to Teddy. She ends up stealing some money from Teddy's boyfriend and lighting his house ablaze. And she runs away to Cuba because that's where Mr. Hemingway is, right? And she is trying, all but stalking this man, or having people stalk him for her, so that she can ask him if he's her father or if he remembers her mother. And the entire story has this, like, she like almost meets him, or they like finally get in the same proximity and she tightens up. All the while she is still writing letters to this nun, her godmother, and we kind of find out that her mama was a little loose with her purse, you know? Her mama was a little bit of a whore, so anybody could have been her daddy. And this is not the first time that she's found this out. The the couple that she was staying with, the man who was friends with her mother, his name is Blue. Blue kind of hinted at that too, because he was like, who did your mother say, or like, who did she insinuate your daddy was? Because it could have been anybody. So that upsets her, but she still is like dead set on like, this is who I think my daddy is. She ends up having to leave Cuba, obviously for reasons, and she still follows her dreams of like becoming a writer. She writes him a letter before she leaves Cuba, in the letter explaining that he might be her daddy. And we don't know if he ever reads it. Like, we never find out who her actual father is or any of these things, right? But she ends up becoming a writer, moves back to Paris, seemingly heals, right, some of these traumas surrounding her relationship with her mother and all of this other stuff. And the story that she ends up writing is supposed to be a coming of age story. So I assume that this was also supposed to be a coming of age story, since we are following her trying to navigate these traumas and so on and so forth. I also understand that sometimes in real life we don't get answers, right? I understand that. But I also think that in real life, the answers that we are looking for are there, and we need to choose to acknowledge them, right? Sometimes acknowledging certain things would have to mean other things, and that just doesn't vibe well with where we are mentally and so on and so forth. I felt like this book went a whole bunch of nowhere. We trekked up this mountain. We found all this information. We thought that this was going to be like this really bad, mysterious, evil, like she killed her ma and all of this stuff. And then no, we don't even really get to see Ernest Hemingway for real, outside of these glimpses of an also alcoholic that married a gang of women and had his own sons and all of it. Like, we don't. For what? For what? For what was the reason? What am I supposed to be taking from this book? What was the point? Like, what? Even if it was a coming of age story, did she really come of, like, did she find the age? Was the age in the room with us? What was the reason? So again, the writing, I think Asha is a great writer. I sincerely believe that. I don't know that she's a good storyteller. I think the two are very, very different. I think people can very much string words together very, very well. They can create and structure a sentence that will blow your mind. But then also, pretty writing doesn't directly correlate with good storytelling, right? Somebody can very plainly tell you, oh yeah, I went outside and got hit by a car, right? And that can be, you could be like, what? That can pull you in, whereas somebody else can be like, oh, the sky was gloomy and should have warned me that blah blah blah, like that I was gonna go outside and my life was going to be stopped and stunned and all of these things, but I ignored it, and still I kept walking forward and forward and forward until bam, a car. Like, somebody could tell a story, and other times people just like to play with words, is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's what the case of this was. A lot of the reason why I say it was an okay book is because the writing style itself pulled me in. The story, I don't care. Like, I kind of cared about Delphine, but then also I thought she was dumb. I really was just invested. I wanted to get to Ernest Hemingway. I wanted to get to who her actual father was, right? Because I do think that a part of the story is about how your parents' decisions affect you at some along the line somewhere. We never got to that, which in turn made me think about forwards and author notes. I think authors should be placing us where they want us to be in the story. I think, particularly with a story like this one, too much was left up to the imagination. I had to do too much work here, which isn't a terrible thing, right? Some people enjoy that in literature, right? But I feel like if she would have gave me like a short little, hey, I wrote this story because, I feel like I would have understood it a little bit better. And I don't think I misunderstood it in a way where I was like, oh, this made me feel dumb. It actually made me feel like, am I too smart for my own good? Like, am I too smart to enjoy certain things now? Is that what's happening? Because, like, I don't like that either. I mean, shout out to growth. But then also, like, what? I honestly don't know what. Like, my mom was like, so what was it about? And I was like, this girl thought Ernest Hemingway was her daddy? And she a thief and an arsonist? I don't know. I don't know what the book was about, y'all. I don't know what it was about. And the rating that I gave it, again, solely because the writing was good, I want to go back and give this book like a 2-star. Because I was being nice. And the longer that I sit with it, and you want to know why I was being nice? Because I thought my mind was going to change. I thought I just needed to sit with it a little bit longer, but no. Ain't. It was terrible. It wasn't terrible and bad. I'm not going to say that. It wasn't terrible and bad. It just wasn't good. And I want to know what the thought process was behind it. Like, I probably need to spend some time looking up some interviews to see what she's spoken about this book, because maybe that'll help me. But baby, it was the wildest sun. The sun was wild, all right. It was wild, all right. So in the comments, let me know a book that you guys read that made you feel the same way. Tell me how you feel about rating books low, right? Like, what are your thought processes on that? I'm curious to know. And without further ado, if no one has told you today, I love you, you are kind, you are smart, you are important. If no one else, to me, I don't care what them other people got to say. I love you, child. All right. Bye, friends.